Hello, my name is Quest Mountains, and I will be doing the negative argument to Jeremy Rader. And we are discussing developing the moon, and what I first want to start off with is that Jeremy had said that that whoever would make it to the moon first would become a superpower because they would have access to the moon and the resources, and if they had developed it first, then essentially they would own the moon. Now, one issue, or the main issue with that, not even one issue, but the entire problem with that statement, is that in 1967 there was a space treaty that was signed by 129 countries, mainly consisting of China, the UK, Russia, and the United States. And what happens now is that if you have one of these countries make it there first, then you are and they try to own it. They try to mine it without permission or another agreement. Then you're violating that treaty, and then maybe war ensues as a result of that. But what is really important though is that privately that may be allowed, but with your argument specifically, that cannot ever happen. The space treaty was there to prohibit that action from being taken. Although, if America wants to develop a private company that wants to mine the moon, then that is okay. But your argument does not work in that situation. Now, also, you were saying that helium-3 is it's potentially a very great resource for energy, but the problem is as safe as it is and as clean as it is, the technology does not exist yet. And that is an issue because we have such a minimal amount of helium-3 on Earth due to the atmosphere sapping it out. Because helium-3 is brought over in solar winds, so the atmosphere reflects the helium-3 and the solar winds away from us, so that doesn't cause us any harm. But you see, we have little to none helium-3, so there's no way for us to learn how to develop these fusion reactors in order, so we don't know if we can actually use it yet. We don't know how long it'll take to perfect that technology. So you had said that the world needs to come together to develop an infrastructure to allow the people, companies, countries, what have you, to get materials and minerals to and from the moon. But then later you had also said that this would be impractical because it takes a lot of energy to get things off of the Earth to the moon and from the moon to the Earth and etc. So I think that the problem with this here is that you're not being very clear and you're kind of contradicting yourself. And I think the solution to this problem would either be everything has to stay on the moon, or we do just bring everything back to the Earth and then do whatever we're going to do with it there. But I believe that your argument is invalid due to the fact that you are contradicting yourself. Also, another thing that you had said was that whoever gets to land on the moon gets to create infrastructure and maybe even housing in order to aid the issue that the Earth is becoming overpopulated. Now, also, again, that violates the space treaty unless another treaty is formed and signed by all the countries that had signed that treaty. And once an agreement's reached, then maybe that's possible, but in the foreseeable future, that cannot actually happen because nobody can own the moon, nobody can own property on the moon. Yes, you can put rovers on the moon, but that's not the same as building a house on the moon. So, yet again, coming back to the space treaty, you are not allowed to own the moon in any capacity. Now, coming back to the whole space treaty issue, what's going to be happening here, though, is that if any country decides to liberate themselves of the space treaty and attempt to take control of the moon, then potentially yes, you are right. There is a possibility of a superpower being developed. But see, every country that is against that one country trying to take over the moon might in turn attack that country, or they might cut ties with the country, cut trade with the country, and they also might race up to the moon to prevent them from further inhabiting it, or from them developing it. So I think that in order to prevent such a thing, that yes, you are right, that all the countries need to figure out a plan all together. But in order to prevent this, in order to prevent one country from taking lead and going up there and mining the moon, something needs to be worked out, or else there can be a lot of consequences. I mean, hell, maybe even World War III could start just based on the fact that one country wouldn't listen and just really needed or wanted the materials up there in order to get an insane amount of financial resources and maybe even to develop weapons on the moon, which is also another thing that is illegal, signed by the treaty, that no country can own space, and no country can own the moon, and no country can put weapons in space, other than satellites, I believe. But overall, there's just the concerning issue that the space treaty in 1967 will most likely be upheld by every party, all 129 parties. And even though China is attempting to make their way up to the moon to mine it or to develop some part of it, I'm sure that they will be looking for the approval of the other 128 parties that signed the space treaty. Overall, I think for your argument, you contradict yourself a little bit in some parts. Overall, you do make some good points, but I believe that your contradiction has led to the fall of your argument, more or less.